Visual effects technology has become so advanced over the last few decades that it's easy for movie fans to take everything for granted. It was only 1975 when Steven Spielberg was using a malfunctioning mechanical shark to film Jaws, and today directors can use programs to animate photorealistic settings and characters to fulfill their wildest dreams. It's become common for moviegoers to expect high quality work from big budgeted films, but every once in a while we are witness to a rare film that pushes the current boundaries of filmmaking and revolutionizes the industry. Gravity is being hailed as the latest groundbreaking film, and its success makes us think about some of the other game changers throughout history. King Kong in 1933, for instance. Special effects designer Willis O'Brien had pioneered the concept of stop motion animation for the 1925 film The Lost World, but the movie that truly put the technique on the map was the original 1933 version of King Kong. Several models were built for the project, including one to bring the titular gorilla to the screen. Despite only having limited resources, O'Brien was able to make its movements believable, which caused viewers to become invested in the character. After the success of King Kong, other films of the period used O'Brien's methods to bring fantasy creatures to life. While Kong was the most memorable aspect of the film, a different revelatory effect called rear screen projection won a Special Achievement Award. This is when live action footage is projected against a small screen on set and was primarily used to enhance scenery while filming models. The practice was used with several movies throughout the 40s. The Wizard of Oz in 1939 was an obvious groundbreaking achievement, and it was the first film to incorporate color during production. The use of color in movies added a new artistic element to the filmmaking process, as directors made stylistic choices to symbolize different aspects of characters or set the tone for certain scenes. However, this film's Oscar-winning effects also brought about a much more subtle evolution in a long-standing technique called matte painting. Matte paintings had been used since the early 1900s, but with the addition of color, they started to become more developed. A precursor to the green screen, digital mattes we are, of course, accustomed to today, for about almost all the movies we see, matte paintings were used to fill in parts of a scene's environment. Enduring for several decades, they were used throughout the 70s and 80s, blending in with the live action shots so well that even trained eyes couldn't tell the difference. With 2001 A Space Odyssey, that was made in 1968, long before Gravity came around, Stanley Kubrick was the one who wowed moviegoers with a groundbreaking interpretation of space and film. In order to portray weightlessness in space, Kubrick attached his actors to wires that were positioned at the top of the set. Since the bodies were blocking the wires in camera, it created the illusion that people were actually floating. For the centrifuge, Kubrick commissioned the construction of a rotating set, which helped give the film a heightened sense of realism. Rotating sets are still used today, most notably for the hotel flight sequence in Inception. 2001 also introduced the motion control camera system, which allowed filmmakers to save precise camera moves to a computer and repeat them when necessary. Used primarily for photography of small scale models, this revolutionary technique was instrumental for several films that followed. In Star Wars in 1977 is famous for its iconic characters and memorable story, but the film was an astonishing technical achievement as well. George Lucas filmed his own effects company, formed his own effects company called Industrial Light and Magic in order to create sequences that had never been seen before. Advancing the motion control system from 2001, Star Wars set a standard for what was possible with models and miniatures as audiences were treated to new planets and exciting dogfights in space. It was an easy choice for Best Visual Effects at the Oscars. The success of Star Wars ushered in a new wave of effects-driven blockbusters that dominated the box office in the 70s and 80s, many of which were made possible by this film's revolutions. Industrial Light and Magic also went on to become the most well-known special effects house, having served on over 300 films. The Star Wars sequels had their own innovations like Yoda, but for many, the original is the ground zero for modern special effects. Jurassic Park in 1993 was Steven Spielberg's way of giving the entire generation of moviegoers the thrill of a lifetime by bringing dinosaurs back to Earth. The photorealistic creatures were extremely believable on screen and a big reason why the film was a hit. Seeing anything that was possible via digital effects, several filmmakers used them after Jurassic Park's success in order to animate characters and environments in live-action films. Despite 20 years of evolution, the effects from Jurassic Park are still used to judge the blockbusters of today, as they hold up remarkably well. Toy Story in 1995 was a seminal film when it was released. but it became a landmark accomplishment in the eyes of adults as well, although for a different reason. It was the first full-length feature film entirely animated with computers. Representing an evolution from traditional hand-drawn animation, the creative team at Pixar underwent an arduous and complex process to get their film on the big screen. A single frame took anywhere between 45 minutes to 30 hours to render. Despite the challenging work, it proved to be worth the trouble, as the computer animation feature benefits not only uh, available in cell animation, but they also created richer environments and character models, allowing the movie to feel more cinematic and realistic. The success of Toy Story paved the way for computer animation to be the norm. Pixar went on to release a string of animated movies that DreamWorks developed, and they, in their own right, became an animated division. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, 2002, is Peter Jackson's epic adaptation of Tolkien's classic literature and provided groundbreaking technology to advance special effects. It was during the second installment, The Two Towers, that motion capture and Andy Serkis were introduced to mainstream audiences. Serkis famously wore a motion capture suit while on set, and his movements were recorded into a computer program, creating a guide for the digital model used in the film. This allowed the CG character to be extremely lifelike, and the practice benefited actors Elijah Wood and Sean Astin, as they had someone to act with during the filming. This method is now the go-to way for animating CG characters. Davy Jones from the Pirates of the Caribbean sequels and Caesar in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, also played by Serkis, wouldn't be possible without it. And of course, Avatar in 2009, James Cameron's latest. It may have been criticized for its heavy-handed message, etc., but one thing all viewers agreed on was the film was an amazing technical achievement. Advancing the motion capture technology from Lord of the Rings, Cameron developed an updated system with notable innovations like improved facial expression capture, and that was captured in cameras that could display the CGI models in real-time filmmaking, made these people very, very human. And of course, Avatar also launched a new wave of 3D and literal 3D filming, and literally changed our perceptions of the format by making the world of Pandora immersive. While most 3D films since have been cash grabs, there are select ones, like The Life of Pi, that made good use of Cameron's new technology to craft engrossing theatrical experiences that keep us coming back to the theater. And going back to looking at Wizard of Oz, they're now making a prequel to Wizard of Oz, and it's going to improve upon that groundbreaking 1939 masterpiece, which looks like an amazing development in all the animated technology that's come to forward to the present day, and putting them back to back, I'm afraid it's going to make the original Wizard of Oz look less magical.